Well, Luke, thank you so much for joining me on the highest level today. And I'm excited to talk to you about your college career and your pro career in football. But to get started, I want to kind of take you back to your high school days. And I know you grew up in Logan and transferred high schools and ended up going back to Logan. And I'd heard a rumor that during that time you were actually filming practice as opposed to participating in practice. So just want to kind of take us back to that time and kind of take us back to when it all started for you and maybe a little bit of the preparation and patience it took to get your first opportunity playing high school football.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. You did some homework on me then. So I've actually had two moves. So I grew up in a place called Farmington, Utah, and I had maybe not the best football options there. It was I could go play at a school called Davis High School and be part of the option. And if you've ever watched my film, I'm not athletic, so that wasn't going to work out. I could go to a school, Viewmont, where they really didn't throw the ball that much, kind of same thing. They were looking for the athletic quarterback. Or I could go to a private school at Judge Memorial Catholic, which was in Salt Lake, and they ran the option. So, all the options I had football wise that were in my vicinity weren't great for me. And so my parents came to me and asked if I could go to any high school, where would it be? And so the year prior, my dad was my Little League football coach. And he wanted to run the spread offense. The spread was kind of really coming on strong, I would say. So there was a coach up in Logan, Utah, at Logan High School named Mike Favero, who is, he's in the Utah High School Hall of Fame, and he was running the spread offense. And he was gracious enough in eighth grade to sit down with my dad, with me, with receivers, and go through and install their offense. And we ran it in eighth grade. Well, I've never had more fun playing football or any sport in my entire life. And I was like, well, I want to go to Logan. I want to go play for Coach Favero. And it worked out great. And how we even got that connection is my uncle coached the defensive line, and he'd been the defensive line coach there. And Logan was like home away from home for me because my grandmas are around this town. My uncles are here. Utah State, which is where my family went, it's right down the road. So I grew up going to Logan. It felt very home. So it wasn't like a big move out of nowhere. So my parents amazingly picked up. We moved, and it was the best move I could have ever asked for. I mean, at Thanksgiving that year, I'm like, well, I'm so thankful that we moved. I love it. I mean, it's just felt great. So then, fast forward, things happen. There was a older quarterback who I was competing against, and my sophomore year, he was a junior, I was a sophomore, and we split time. And my high school coach at the time came up with a system called the plus one system. So for any coaches out there that are listening who have two quarterbacks and they don't really know how to utilize them the best, and they want to give them an opportunity, I'd recommend the plus one system. So he'd start the game off, I'd get the second drive, and then he'd get the third drive. And then if he scored, he kept playing until he didn't score. If he didn't score, now I'm in. And I scored. If we scored and let it drive, guess what? Now I get to continue to play. So what it did is it got me to focus that, listen, football, you got to get results. It's about what is a quarterback's job. It's not about the stats. It's not about this, that, and the other. It's about can you help your team score points, get them in the end zone. So went through that for a year. That quarterback, his name's DJ Nelson, was one of the better high school football players in the state's history, along with his brother Riley, who might be the greatest high school quarterback of all time for anybody that's in Utah, they know. But then I had another Nelson underneath me who was a freshman. So I'm a sophomore, got an older brother who's a junior I'm competing with. And I have a younger Nelson who's a freshman. And my dad was like, well, you're in a full Nelson. You're never going to be the guy here in this case, which, looking back on it, I can see what he's saying. But at the same time, and he had some private quarterback coach in LA in his ear who was telling him that I would never get recruited in Logan, Utah. It's too small of a school. Coaches aren't going to come up and be able to recruit me. So that ultimately led the full Nelson plus not thinking that I would get recruited to my family, then getting influenced to go to Oaks Christian in California. Well, in Logan, Utah, that's like being in a bubble within a bubble, right? In the state of Utah, people know. Now I'm going to Oaks Christian, and I would say the the Christian in that it was a loose term. It's like I go there and it's like I'm seeing drinking for the first time. I'm seeing drugs for the first time. There's celebrities, kids who attend that school. It's Hollywood High. I mean, it's like
Yep.
there's BMWs, there's G wagons, rather than beat up trucks, you know rather than my rival, those guys getting up at 3 a.m. to help their dad's dairy farm. Our rival, same thing. People had just it was total affluence. And then it was a charter school. People are coming in 30 minutes, 45 minutes to be able to come in. So I never really got my footing at Oaks Christian. I never really got a group that I really felt comfortable with, that I fit in with. Um, and then school wise, oh my gosh, it was like it's harder than Washington State by a mile. So I'm drowning in schoolwork. I got no friends. Football wise, really wasn't enjoying football to a certain degree. I had a shoulder injury. And then, my parents ended up separating out there. The move was really stressful on everyone. So they separate. My mom ends up having some hard time. I didn't end up seeing my parents for an extended period of time. So then I start week one at Oaks Christian. I don't do well. We played Bellevue, Washington, or Bellevue High School in Washington. I end up throwing 3 picks. I don't perform well. It was a national game. And then the next week I play 2 series and I get benched, and then I'm benched. So then, my family sees I'm miserable. I'm not enjoying school. I'm not enjoying my life in general. And so they made the decision to move back to Logan. And thankfully we did. I mean, just to give you a context of did I want to be there or not. The first week we moved to California, my own money that I had, allowance, whatever. I bought my own plane ticket and I was back within 2 weeks in Logan, and I tried to stay there. So you can tell where my mindset was of did I really want to be in California? Heck no. I wanted to be with my buddies. I wanted to be in Logan. I wanted to be where I loved it. Come back, the state deems me ineligible because the transfer rule or whatever. And it didn't even matter because at that point, the team, my old team, is rolling. They're like 4-0, 5-0. And so the role that I had, I couldn't practice, I couldn't do any of that stuff. So my head coach didn't allow me to be a victim. He said, "You're going to be a GA, you're going to be a graduate assistant, you're going to do all the grunt work." So I filmed, I broke down the film, I tagged it, I did all that stuff. And it really sucked. It really did. I mean, I did not enjoy it. Also, not to mention all the shit that I got from all the rival schools and people at my own high school, calling me a Cali reject, this, that, and the other. I mean, it was a really challenging time. My scholarship from Florida State, I had a scholarship from Florida State that got pulled. So it was just like all these things that I felt like I had momentum. Everything was kind of crumbling, it seemed like. Well, now we're at Rice-Eccles Stadium and they're playing East High School for the 4A state championship. Currently, they're 13-0. They got an opportunity to go 14-0, make history. They're down, minute and some change left. Coach Rivero calls us, sluggo play. DJ Nelson, the quarterback that I competed with, throws a game-winning touchdown pass, state championship. I'm not on the field. I'm not contributing at all. Besides, I'm behind the camera up in the stands filming it. So you talk about being as low could be. I was there. But, I look back on it now, and that moment shaped me because I didn't really know how to watch film beforehand. I didn't know how to break it up. I didn't know what I was doing from preparation, all that stuff. And I wasn't a great physical player. And through that agony, guess what? My parents, they have always supported me. My parents always, they're the parents that will do anything that they could to give me an opportunity. I'm so grateful for it. Well, out of that, they helped me get a sports psychologist. And that was like between the film, between learning my preparation, between doing all that stuff and having a sports psychologist, that's what really helped me become, the foundation for me to be a good player. And, so then fast forward 6 years, we're playing in 2017 against the University of Utah. I'm not behind the camera this time. I'm on the field. And what I see is third down, we got third and goal, and they're playing a little man coverage here. So I check easy 6-17, a little quick out, fire slot, throw a touchdown pass to my buddy Kyle Sweet. It was a 117 touchdown pass. And for anybody that was a Pac-12 fan at the time, I broke the Pac-12 career touchdown record in my home state at a school that didn't recruit me. And then at the same place that I was on the other side of the camera filming it all when my buddies won the state championship, 6 years prior. So my message to people is that, you might not like where you're at. It might be pretty shitty, the circumstances you have. You might be suspended. You might not be the starter. You might not have what you want, but that might be the very preparation that you need in order to get to where you're going to be going. That might be the very thing that can mold you into the person or the player that can help you become the best version of yourself. Without that, without the transfer to California, I don't create the competitive fire and the edge that I had, that kind of that shit factor, that grit factor that I would not be denied. And then coming back without the preparation, without the film, without the mentorship by my high school coach, my film habits, my study habits, all that, without working with my sports psychologist, I got no shot. I got no shot because I wasn't a great physical talent and I lacked a lot of confidence. But that really helped me create a great foundation. So I know it's a long-winded story, but I think people can learn from it. And there's been moments in my life where things haven't gone my way where I haven't had that mindset, given the NFL. And guess what? It didn't work out for me that great. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, first of all, it's great context for the conversation that I want to have today. And, you've mentioned a couple of people. You've mentioned your high school coach, you've mentioned your parents, the sports psychologist that you were working with. Obviously, 6 years later, you're breaking records, you're playing in college. It's easy to look back and kind of maybe have some appreciation for that tough time you were going through. Talk about what you were going through in the moment, because I'm assuming you're 17, 18 years old. Like you said, not only are you kind of like dealing with all these different adjustments, but now you're dealing with the social aspect of people kind of like giving you a hard time for not making it in California and coming back and not really being a true part of the team. Was it the sports psychologist that was kind of like helping you mold your mindset, or was it some other influences? Just talk about the mindset that you developed in that moment, and maybe some of the challenges that you were dealing with back in that time.
yeah. Well, I mean, the challenges they felt like mountains to me at that time because you're 17, 18 years old. Probably I was 16 at the time. So 16 when I moved back, 16, 17 years old, you don't know anything. And I'm 30 years old. I don't know anything now, right? When I'm 50, I'll be like, I didn't know crap then. But you care so much of what people think of you. So here you are getting a bunch of crap from people. Your scholarship just got pulled, your ratings or whatever. I mean, like I was so consumed by what people thought of me. So my anxiety levels were extremely high and I was like in misery. But thankfully for me, I had a phenomenal head football coach. I had a phenomenal basketball coach who they would not let me go down the victim mindset. I had two great supportive, loving parents and two great sisters. I had a core group of friends who really, you know, yeah, they'd bust my balls every now and then, and they still do to this day. They're like, "Hey, how many state championships do you have?" I'm like, go ahead and F you. But but they were there, and I had a great support system around me. And then I started working with my sports psychologist, and it's like, listen, these things that happen to you can't control that, but what you can do, here's what we can work on, and this is how it can make you better. And that's really, the combination of all that really helped me be able to get to where I wanted to get to. And like I said, I think that time was foundational for me because before, I was kind of like the easygoing kid. It's like, if we won, all right. If we lost, all right. It wasn't that important to me. And then when I moved and all the adversity happened, it's like, I like the competitive fire, the switch that came in me that I still have to this day. I mean, it got embedded in me. And a lot of that was probably external motivation at the time. And now I talk about, hey, you need some internal motivation in order to keep it all going, right? You need something that's coming from within rather than just trying to prove people wrong. But I had that Tony or that Toby Keith song, "How Do You Like Me Now" on replay. I just kept thinking about, all right, I'll get the last laugh. I'm going to get the last laugh. I'm going to get the last laugh. This is, and I had kind of a checklist. And it's like, I just kind of went through the checklist. And really, quite frankly, I pretty much got every name off of that. So, and when I got that done, though, and to kind of my point, it's like, well, my why burned up then. It's like I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I was doing all this to just prove people wrong. It really wasn't coming from internal and from within. So it's like I look back on my playing days. yeah, I love playing, but it's not my big why. It's not what I truly enjoyed and loved to do. It was a great time in my life, but it's not like the thing I felt I was born to do. There's a CNN documentary of me and my family, and it's called Extreme Parenting. So people want to get a laugh about that. But it's like, you can get an idea of what my parents were willing to do. And I cringe watching the show because it's like I'm like, oh, I'm born to be a quarterback. Like, no, that's a script that I was told. It's like, no, no, no. What I'm doing now in my life, I feel like I'm born to do that. But when I was playing, is really to get the approval, to get people to like me, to be able to feel like I'm on top of the mountain, like I matter. Um, so anyways, so you want to talk about getting there, and then I didn't have the desire to stay there because it's like, well, this didn't fill me up. I don't feel better about myself now.
Yeah, really interesting. Just hearing you talk about it reminds me, Mike Tomlin said once they were asking him, they had a good start to the season. They were talking about kind of like the potential of the team. And he really said, like, we don't really know anything about this team until we face adversity. And it kind of mirrors exactly what you said with your career. And it seems like everything had been really good up until that point when you transferred and kind of faced this adversity. And I agree with you. I mean, like, it's interesting looking back at my coaching career. I kind of mirror what you said, where it's like the things that I thought were so important when I was in my early 20s pursuing coaching. Once I kind of like started to mature and have these different experiences, it's like, is this really what
Right.
this is all about? And so it's just interesting as we like mature and grow. We change where we are in life, and also kind of like our priorities change, and maybe what we want out of life changes too.
You get
Um,
perspective, right? You get
Absolutely.
perspective. So yeah, I think you get some wisdom. Like I said, I'm 30 years old. I'll go back and watch this podcast when I'm 50, and I'm like, "Psh, that kid didn't know crap. He didn't know anything, you know?"
Why did I act like I knew so much at that time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you do have a lot to teach. I know that, and we're going to get to that here in a second. But after your college career, or excuse me, your high school career, it's interesting. You mentioned having the scholarship from Florida State pulled, and it's kind of like I would imagine this high of all highs, having the scholarship to like a top tier football school.
Right.
Then that kind of like disappears, and you kind of have to like make the decision whether you're going to pick up and kind of continue down this path, or it's like, if it's not going to be the Florida State type scholarship, then I'm not going to pursue this. But you end up walking on at Washington State. So I would just love to hear kind of like your mindset in the process of ending up at Washington State, and maybe a little bit about the first time you met Coach Leach.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll tell you exactly the first meeting when we get to that point. Yeah, so my family, we're going on a vacation out to the Bahamas, and on the way, people said, well, just stop by campuses along the way if you can and be able to show, hey, Luke's got a 6'4" frame, he's got this. I'm telling you, my parents did whatever they could to help me out. And some of it I appreciate it all. And looking back at it, now I give parents a little bit of guidance on, hey, there's probably a good way and probably a different way of doing it. And that's part of, what I'm doing right now is because parents just don't know. They want what's
Yeah.
best for their kid, but there's no manual, there's no playbook. So I don't fault my parents. Everything that my parents did shaped me into the man I am today, and I'm very grateful. I love them. They would do anything for me. So I want to make that well known. It's not like I'm ever bringing my parents down. So we stopped by Florida State, meet with Damian Craig, who is the quarterback coach. I don't even know where he's at these days. I'm sure he's somewhere. And yeah, he watched my film. I think he threw on like a minute of my Logan High film, and I got offered. And then, we had already made the decision that we were at Oaks Christian, so we had already moved. But I'm thinking to myself, like, well, he just watched my Logan High film, and I just got offered by Florida State. Why did we have to move? You know? So, anyways, we go and have vacation. I'm on cloud nine because that was my favorite college. In terms of I just liked their. Why was it my favorite college? Well, because I watched Bobby Bowden was coaching, Christian Ponder. They were playing Miami on. It was the NBC night. It was the Saturday game, and I'm watching them play, and I loved Florida State's colors, plain and simple. Like that's what I think high school kids. That's how they like a certain school or whatever. So anyways, I got offered by my dream school in that regard. And then all the adversity happens, that scholarship gets pulled. And then the realization kicks in. It's like, well, teams now have a red flag on me. It seems like nobody was talking to me. Nobody was reaching out. Only small schools were reaching out. BYU, Utah, some of the schools that were on my track before, well, now they're really off. Now nobody's talking to me. And then I played before my senior season, Idaho came down and Jason Gesser was the offense coordinator, and they had oh gosh, Al Papuno was on our staff. He came down, he filmed me, sent it to Gesser, and they said, hey, offer him. So I got offered by Idaho. So that was my next offer that I got. Florida State, pulled, and then I get Idaho. So it's like, hi, and then you're going low. But I was very grateful for the opportunity. Season goes on, and then Cornell came and said, you have an opportunity to play. But as we know, Ivy League schools, it's not you get your school paid for. I could have been the lowest ACT in Ivy League history to get into the school, and that was my scholarship, right? So, play of the year, Idaho gets fired, my scholarship gets pulled. Didn't say I was athletic enough, which I don't blame them, right? Pacino came in, so I pulled that. So I had an opportunity to go to Washington State or Cornell. I committed to Cornell on my official visit. The coach that recruited me there, Travis Burkett, he's out of coaching right now. But anybody who wants to get a great football coach and a phenomenal recruiter, I mean, the guy's top notch. If I was still in college coaching, he would have been among one of the first hires that I would have done based on my experience. And just, I mean, it was incredible. He single-handedly would have got me to Cornell. So I commit to Cornell, love Travis. And then the head coach, Ken Austin, who was throwing the crap out of the football, he left for the CFL 2 weeks later to go be a head coach and a GM. So, so that happens. And I was already feeling right as I committed. I'm like, oh, I don't feel like this is the right decision. Like, I feel like I'm playing small ball here. I want to go play at this school. And then it was like confirmation to me. It was like, as Matthew McConaughey would say, it was my green light when he left. I'm like, all right, I'm going to Washington State. So, my first interaction with Coach Leach at Washington State was on an unofficial, no, it was on an official visit. They threw me a bone. It was like the last weekend of recruiting. There was a kid named Eric Powell who was our kicker. He was going to walk on. Dylan Hanser, who was gray shirted, and then me. And we were the dream team, right? It's like we weren't the top recruits, but we're coming in. They paid for our flight. I think we got one night in and out. And the meeting that I had with Coach Leach, it went like this. One of the biggest things I took away from it, I'll talk football first, is he'll give me an equal opportunity to compete. It doesn't matter who they bring in, doesn't matter if I have a scholarship or not. I'm not going to be able to eat with the team. I'm not going to be able to do all this. So I'm going to have all these, things against me. But on the football field with him in his eyes, I'll have an opportunity to compete. And I believed him. And you know what? He was true to his word. And the biggest thing I appreciate about Coach Leach is he never BS'd you. He would tell you exactly what he was thinking. And I think that any coach or anybody could learn a real valuable lesson from that because it allowed me to be able to take the information and then do something with it rather than I think a lot of people just play like this, like hide the weenie to a certain degree because they tell people what they want to hear so that they don't, hurt them. But I talk about this principle of hurt versus harm. Like, your delivery might hurt, the truth might hurt, but it's not going to harm them in the long run. But if you don't tell them that truth, you're going to harm them in the long run. It's like being in a relationship that's no longer working, right? If you end it, it's going to hurt, but you both are going to be better off because of it. But if you let it linger, you let it stay, you don't do what you need to do, now you've harmed each other and it's detrimental. And I think coaches get caught up in that, or leaders in general. And yes, I think there's a way of delivering hard news. And sometimes Coach Leach, he had no filter when it came to that. All right. Okay. But I could take what he said and actually have valuable information moving forward. Anyways, back to that meeting. So he was talking about the biggest thing I learned. It's not like a super funny story, but he's like, "Yeah, if you're ever traveling and your shirt's wrinkly, this is what I recommend doing. Get a hanger, put it in the bathroom, turn up the the water as hot as it goes. Just shut the door and keep it in there for about 10 minutes, and it'll be good." And he paused and he coughed a whole lot more than I just did right there. But I will remember that conversation forever because it's like that was what was going to be coming for the next 5 years of my life, you know?
Yes, absolutely. For us that are familiar with Coach Leach, we know that was just scratching the surface
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
kind of.
No, it was just, yeah. And my dad was like, "Oh, that's actually good information. I am traveling." So
Okay, okay, so he was helping you guys out in the moment too.
he
Um,
was, he was.
so you mentioned kind of his very straightforward style of communicating to you as an individual, but talk about just Washington State for a moment at that moment in time. This is 2013. Coach Leach has been there, I think, a season at this point, and the team has not turned the corner. Still a losing record the year before. Talk about where Washington State was at that moment and kind of like the things Coach Leach was doing to maybe start building up the culture for the next 4 or 5 years of runs that you guys were about to go on.
Yeah. Well, we were really shitty. We were one of the worst, probably football programs, especially Power Five at the total bottom. I mean, I think Washington State averaged 2 point something wins for however long. They had a phenomenal run in the late 90s, early 2000s, two Rose Bowls. They go play the Holiday Bowl. Just amazing, right? Washington State so rich with great football. And then there's this dark period, and it's really dark. And, so Leach got hired. Really, what sets the catalyst off is Bill Moose gets hired. We had President Floyd at the time wanted to make football a priority, and he hires Bill Moose, and Bill Moose is a Coug. So guess what? I love when Cougs are working in at Washington State because they give a crap about the place, and that's exactly what Bill Moose did. So Bill Moose invested a ton in football, and the biggest hire that he made is Coach Mike Leach. So Mike Leach is there. They just went 3-8. They had just won the Apple Cup in historic fashion, but they're 3-8. But people are on a high that, hey, we just won the Apple Cup. Um, Facilities weren't great. I had never heard of Washington State before. I mean, it's not like some place that I dreamed of going because when I grew up playing football, they were really bad. I mean, I didn't even know that they existed really. I didn't know where they were. So the first time I went to a game was at UCLA, and I didn't even know that they were playing. Looking back, and I'm like, oh, I watched Washington State play, but they got creamed by UCLA. And so I'm up there. Our culture's awful, really bad. Had a lot of not, just it wasn't a tight locker room by any means. Facilities were bad, just really tough circumstance going into. But I was really excited about it because, it's like we had an opportunity to turn it around. So we were Leach's really first recruiting class because the year prior, they had taken the guys who were left from the signing class that the previous staff had gotten. So this was like their first recruiting class. Now, I wasn't the top recruit, and the top recruit was a four-star quarterback who was in my same class at the time. But we go there, and how it got built is one of the best things that Leach did is he hired phenomenal people around him. And when he recognized that something wasn't working on the staff and that they weren't producing, he had no problem being able to move on from them. And so, initially we didn't have the right core group of coaches there, but he had some great key foundational pieces. I mean, on offense, I don't think our staff turned over once. I mean, our inside receiver position, the receiver positions changed here and there, but that wasn't because people got fired, it's because they moved on. They were doing a great job. On defensive side of the ball, when I first got there, that group got canned, and then we brought in Alex Grinch, who was one of the best hires that Coach Leach has ever made. When we got Grinch, it's like, oh my gosh, that guy was amazing for us. But how the culture got built is through freaking toughness. You talk about Coach Leach's small game plan and his simplicity and his funniness and all that. The guy was all about you got to be a tough individual to play for him. And we had our weight coach. I hated him, Jason Lascausa. When I first got there, we called him Loco. I mean, he's out of his mind. But it was like we're part of the army to a certain degree. I'm not going to take it to that level because those guys are doing way more important stuff than we were playing football. But it was like we're going to break you. We're going to see who wants to be here, and we're going to see who wants to not. And it really shaped and got our culture going. And it didn't work, you know, first 2 years. We went 6-7. We lost in the New Mexico Bowl, but that was progress. We had gotten to the first bowl game in however long, and then we went 3-8 again. And that 3-8 off season going into my redshirt sophomore year was miserable, just miserable. I mean, competitions left and right, most grueling things that you could think of as, and now they couldn't do what we did then because of all the rules. I don't Leach would have hated today's college football.
Yeah.
Hated it, you know. Except that he wouldn't have hated it if he could find you. He always talked about, well, if you guys could get paid, then I'll just do what the NFL does. I'll fine you. And you're late. All right, $10,000. Let's see it. But I know they can't do that in college football. I don't think I don't think they would be able to. But so I think what Coach Leach did is just he built a tough culture of toughness. He had a great staff around him. Offensively, defensively. When Grinch got hired, just a phenomenal hire. He had people who had played for him, all that stuff, and then credit to the players who I played with and my teammates. I mean, they did a phenomenal job of really going out there and doing the work and putting it in. And that 2015 team I've talked about before, and in fact, I'm very grateful. Washington State's actually going to honor that team in October. So I'm doing my book signing up in Pullman on October 24th, and then we play Toledo October 25th, and they're honoring that 2015 team that game or during that game for our 10-year reunion. But I so admire the guys that played on that team because they're just such tough individuals. They went from just the grueling period at Washington State to then being able to win 9 games, win a bowl game, and really flip the script because then we go on 8 wins, 9 wins, and then they had the 11-win season. And I think people really loved that Washington State era, and with the peak of it being the Minshew mania and all that stuff. But it really started, you know, with that first recruiting class and then that 2015 team who got over the hump. And those guys, I'm just really grateful that they're going to be able to get honored and celebrated because those guys have the utmost respect from me and what they were able to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I think that's also what's really great too. We focus so many times on like championships or, did you win this big bowl game? And sometimes it can be a little bigger than just the results. And, I had experience working at a place, SMU, that had 30 years of losing beforehand. And I feel very similar to how you feel, which is like we didn't win the national championship. We didn't even win our conference, but like that first year going to a bowl game in 30 years was like such an incredible moment to be involved in that program. And even though it doesn't go down as a championship, it was such like a huge watershed moment that just turned the tide to kind of like what we've seen now. And, it takes those moments in history to kind of like turn it around, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's very rarely
No.
that it happens overnight.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like in 2015, we beat Oregon on the road, and like that's the turning point in my mind in double overtime. They were playing in the national championship the year before, and where were we the year before? We were 3-8. So it's like that was a huge moment for us. And then fast forward to my senior year, well, we beat a top 5 USC team in Pullman, and it's like you go from the dark ages where Washington State can't fill the stands, the support's down, the morale's low, nobody knows about Washington State, to then, all right, we're on top of the college football world at that point. And, it starts with having the right people on the bus. Our President Floyd at the time hiring Bill Moose, getting the right people involved, getting Cougs there that wanted to get it done. Mike Leach hiring the right guys, recruiting the right guys, having the right leadership. So it's just, there's so much that goes into it. People that work in the ticket. I mean, like everybody plays a role in changing the culture. It was such a bad culture everywhere moving forward. It's like people have this term, you couged it. Well, what did couged it mean? Well, you freaking lost it at the end. Oh, we couged it. We couged it. Well, guess what? I'm proud to say that when we were there and we're playing, we were one of the top teams in the country when it came down to fourth quarter moments. Not only when I was there, but when Gardner was there, when Gordon was there. It's like we changed. What did couged it mean? Okay, couged it now means that, yeah, we're going to have an opportunity to win at the end. And guess what? Most of the time we do.
yeah,
So it's just like, but you had to change the culture in every freaking fiber of the building, and you knew that. And
yes,
you know that at SMU. Same thing around campus. It's like We were the laughing stock at Washington State. I remember there was soccer, you come in with other sports and you could do all these orientations, and the soccer gals there were like, yeah, you guys suck. Like, it's like, we're the embarrassment. So, anyways, I'm happy that we flipped it, and I'm just so proud of that team. And it was such a fun era. It was such a fun
Yeah.
era, and I'm really hoping that Washington State can get back to that point. I think they got the right people there.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. And, I'm curious too, because obviously the program was going through this transformation. You show up as a walk on and you end up as, this Pac 12. You hold multiple records for Pac 12 quarterbacks for career, for seasons. So I'm just curious because, like, I wanted to ask about the walk on mindset, but I want to know, like, okay, so you have a walk on mindset when you walk in the door. Do you carry that through the entire time when you're there at Washington State, or is there an evolution in your mindset where maybe your first couple of years you have that walk on mindset, and then your mindset maybe evolves as you become the starter and start setting records? Just kind of talk about that walk on mindset, and maybe if there was an evolution or what type of
Yeah.
consistency there was in your mindset.
Yeah, well, I'll show you fun. People look at this hat. Let me just pull this hat down. It's like, I mean, this thing is beat up. It is gross. It's got cuts. There's blood on it. Who knows? I mean, sweat, all that stuff. And that is my walk-on hat. It's the first thing I bought when I got to campus, and it was the thing that kept me throughout. And it was a reminder to myself of where I came from. I bought the hat. I loved it at the beginning, and now it is. But it's a reminder to myself of the struggle, right? And it's not like Rudy. You look at Rudy, and it's like, oh, you get the heroic ending. It's like, no, you get on campus, you fumble, maybe a snap team or scout team rep, and you get yelled at by Coach Wilson saying, Falk, or not even Falk, he didn't know who I was. Number 4, get the out of the field. I don't want to see your ass in there again. Lose, get him in there. I didn't get one more scout team rep the entire season. So the mountain feels like this. Now it feels like I'm scaling. You don't meet with the football team. Your locker, when you go down, is another reminder of your place. So it's like, here's the scholarship athletes. They get their number associated with their locker, right? 4, whatever. So 4 would have been on the top. It would have been nice, easy for me to get. But 114 is at the very bottom. It's like second to the bottom. So I'm leaning over every day, trying to plug in my deal. I'm 114. So locker 114. And you know, all these other, you go pick your books up, the scholarship athletes, well, theirs is all prepackaged for them. They don't pay it. They go right to the front of the line. Well, me, I'm like on a scavenger hunt. Okay, I picked this book. Now I'm sitting in a line for 45 minutes that feels like I'm at Disneyland, but rather than me being able to get on a nice ride at the end, I get a $500 bill to pay my books. So it's like those types of things. Then you don't get stipend. You don't get the scholarship money that is coming in. So, all right, I got a job at one point in my time up there to have some spending money. And I did catering. Well, I catered an event for the athletic department, higher ups at the university, and I got tasked with serving Bill Moose in the athletic department. Well, what am I doing? I'm listening to their conversation, right? Is anything being said about number 4? No, it's about the 4-star recruit, right? So it's like the constant reminders of where you're at. And then you try to meet with certain coaches. Well, certain coaches have the attitude that you're a walk-on. I'm not going to meet with you. So it's like you're like pulling their teeth. You can feel that they don't want to be there, like they're wasting their time on you. But there are other coaches, like my offensive line coach, Clay McGuire, who took me under his wing. He saw my work ethic. He did all that, and he really bought in and believed in me. So I think when I was the most successful at Washington State, which I would say my first 4 years, so it had been, when I first walked on, I call that a success because of how I climbed and I got a scholarship. Then my 2015 season, 2016 season, I had that mentality. Then I got to this point, you're going to be a top, you're going to be a third round, second or third round draft pick by top agents. All this stuff got to my head. I allowed the trappings of success to create entitlement. But really, at the core of it is, Evan, I got to the top of the mountain of all those external motivation, which allowed me to have that walk on mentality. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I got to the point where I felt like I had accomplished all that stuff and my why burned up. So I didn't keep my walk on mentality. In fact, I got lazy. I didn't do what I needed to do. I didn't lead the way I needed to lead. I didn't work as hard. Leach and I had a rift. I was a victim in my mind. If Coach Leach would just support me better and all this stuff, I didn't do what helped me get in that position. And you know what? It took me a lot of time to be able to see that. And in fact, I carried that shitty attitude with me my entire NFL career, which was all of 2 years, if that, you know. But and I victim my way right out of it. I didn't work on my mind strength. I didn't have my walk-on mentality. And but for me, I view it as an apprenticeship. It's like that was all preparing me to do what I do today, right? I wasn't meant to be the Tom Brady. I wasn't meant to have a 10-year NFL career. I was meant to coach and to help people in doing what I'm doing today. And without that experience, I don't think I'm as good of a coach. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for my slip. I'm grateful now that I can identify what does motivate me, what does drive me. So when I am working with an athlete, when I am working with a coach, when I am working with a high performer, I can help them identify, are you living on society's scoreboard? Are you doing things to get more status, more money, more approval to try to make up and fill the void within you? Or are you doing something because it's really what fires you up? And the question I ask them is like, do you love the day to day? You love the day to day. If you love the day to day, you're on the right track. If you don't love the day to day and you only think about the destination and what it's going to bring you, I got news for you. You're just wishing and pissing time away. And when you get there, you're going to be unfulfilled. So that's long-winded again, but early on, yeah, I had the walk-on mentality tremendously. In fact, they wanted to give me locker four once I got on scholarship. AP and Milt, who those are my guys in the Washington State equipment room, said, no, I'm going to be 114. I wanted the reminder over and over and over again about where I started. I wanted that. And I carried that chip on my shoulder. And then at some point, I got fat, I got lazy, I got entitled, I didn't work as hard. And and quite frankly, too, it's like I felt like my body just aged like that last year because I didn't work on it properly. It's like I move around, I'm like, golly, I look like I'm 45 versus when I was a redshirt freshman. I'm moving around back there, scrambling a little bit. Kook fans will think I'm lying on that, but go back and watch the film. They only remember me as the statue that just was a baby seal out there getting clubbed left and
Man.
right.
Well, first of all, like I appreciate your transparency because it's obviously it shows a lot of maturity and a lot of growth for yourself to be able to look back at that time and know that you didn't maybe take the right mentality or maybe left something on the table, so to speak. You still had an awesome career. You still kind of like were at the helm during this turnaround time at Washington State. But I think it's just such a great lesson to teach people. And I was going to ask you about kind of like your NFL career and do you view it as an accomplishment or do you view it in a different light? But you kind of just summed it up, really, saying about, now you are in this position where you're pursuing your why every day. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we get in this position where it's like, man, if I had just been more prepared for my opportunity, or if I had just, if my dad was a coach, I would have made it in coaching or whatever. But it seems like you have a great perspective just on life and a gratitude for your path, as opposed to kind of looking back at that with any type of resentment.
Yeah, I think when I first got out, I looked at it from the resentment eyes. Oh gosh, if Leach didn't bench me, if this didn't happen, if this didn't happen, had I gotten drafted to a place that I wanted to be, or it would have been a better situation for me. Had I got my opportunity when I was with the Jets, that I had, better pieces around me, or whatever. It's like I viewed it from victim, 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 give my power away. But then having perspective, having time, having clarity, it's like, no, no, no. I wasn't meant to do that. I didn't love playing football, right? I loved what football got me. And I had the same realization in coaching. I tried to go climb that society's approval seeking mountaintop again. And I had to have a real honest look at myself at that point. But, it's like if I didn't have that perspective, I'm probably still in that victim-minded mindset at the time. And I'm telling you what, it was the greatest gift for me because I had so much growth out of it. And I don't view it as, oh my gosh, I only had 2 years and I played for three teams and this, that, and the other. It's like, how many guys get drafted? Okay.
Yeah.
How many guys get to play even? I got to play. Yeah, I threw a pick six and I had a fumble go for six and I had more, all that. But it's like I was the man in the arena. I'm
Yep.
grateful. I'm appreciative of that. I got to meet the guy that I looked up to most in my life was Tom Brady. Well, you talk about a fun moment. So I'm at, I'm going to give you a little story here. So we're with the Dolphins and we're playing the Patriots. And do you remember that crazy hook and ladder type of deal at the end where we beat the Patriots? So that
Yep.
was there, and then we go play them up in New England, all that stuff beforehand. But people always ask me, well, are you going to go meet Tom Brady? Because everybody knew how much Tom Brady like meant to me in my life. And in fact, I was the same draft pick as Tom Brady. So it was just like, it was bizarre. And I'm like, I'm not going to meet him until I play against him. When I play against him, that'll be the first time I meet him. Well, the next year it happened. My first career start is against Tom Brady. How cool is that? Yeah, we got our butts kicked. Yeah, it was 30-14. Yes, we only had one offensive touchdown because we blocked a punt and we got the ball on the 2 yard line. I think I handed the ball off for a touchdown. It's like, yeah, but I got to play. It was amazing. And I'll look back on that. I got a picture of it. I mean, I'll remember that forever. And what's pretty cool is I always teach, like Tony Robbins talks about this method called modeling, right? Where you find somebody who is where you want to be and you model their behavior and their actions. Now, I put a little twist on it. I said, find somebody who's where you want to be, who you respect holistically. There could be a guy who seems to have it all in the field, but is lost off of it. Well, I don't really want to follow that guy. I don't want to be the really wealthy guy, but is miserable on the inside. So Tom Brady to me seemed like somebody whom I wanted to model my life after. And so what did I do? I watched YouTube videos of him when I'm eating my lunch. I just Googled Tom Brady or I'd YouTube Tom Brady and I watch and I try to find out what's he doing. And I try to model that in my own life. And that's facts where I learned about the book called The Four Agreements, which, had an influence on me on this book. There's
Yeah.
principles within that, but I got it by modeling through him. And then you talk about crazy scenario and how it happened. He's a sixth round pick, pick 199. I'm a sixth round pick, 199. He got drafted at a certain age, or he started at a certain age in a second year in the third game against NFL legend Peyton Manning. I started the same age, same year, same game against legendary Tom Brady. It's like the similarities were incredible. And then I didn't continue to model his behavior, obviously, which is what got me out of the NFL. But you talk about like pretty cool, where I tell kids that I'm working with now, or athletes or coaches, even, it's like you'll get to the summit as long as you continue to put your feet where they put their feet, their hand where you put their hand, and do what they did and do it consistently. I didn't do it consistently. And then that goes to my why again of why did Tom Brady play 23 plus years? In my opinion, I don't know him. I mean, I only met him the one time. I still have the utmost respect for him because I think he had an internal burning desire to be the best that he could be. He loved football. He loves football. He will throw the football around left and right. Since I've been done playing, like done playing, I picked up the football maybe twice. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference between him and me. But what I am doing is I'm picking up the pen. I'm writing these things. This is my passion. This is where I want to be the Tom Brady in. And he was the Tom Brady in football because he found his passion. He found his why.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wrote in my book, Finding Intangibles, about how Tom Brady, the scouts used to talk about Tom Brady going to practice as like a 6-year-old going to recess. It's like the joy of like competing, just like the euphoria of running out on that practice field. Not everybody has that,
No,
especially
I would say a lot of athletes actually probably don't.
yeah,
I think a lot of athletes are motivated by what the game can give them rather than the pure joy of playing the game,
yeah,
you know? And I was
would
one
agree.
of them. And there's a reason that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and those guys are so successful. They love the process. They love the game. I didn't like
Yes,
watching film. I did it because it was necessary. I didn't like that stuff. And that probably shocks people who watch me at Washington State because I was known for my work ethic, my preparation. But guess what? I didn't enjoy it. I did it to get it what I thought it could get me.
yeah,
Versus like, you wrote a book. This is a grueling process. There's so much that goes into it, right? But I freaking will do it time and time and time and time and time again because it was the most fun thing I've ever done, along with coaching, along with speaking, along with that stuff. I enjoy the process, not just the destination where I think I'm going to go. I think I'm on the right path. Do I have external motivation still? Hell yeah. I want this thing to be a bestseller. Absolutely. But I don't need it to be a bestseller in order for me to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
That was the difference between me and the player.
Well, I think this is a perfect transition to just kind of start wrapping up and for
What
you
you
to
think, me?
tell
Just
us.
keep bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in.
Hey, if you need to, I could just clip a little, clip a little screenshot up in the corner.
No, you're
Um,
good. You're
but
good.
I want you to tell us about your book, and then also tell us if there was anything that you learned writing the book that you thought you knew before, but that you actually learned throughout this process of putting pen to paper.
Yeah. No, I think so. Your first part is how did it come about? Is that, or
Or
did I totally botch that?
no, tell us how it came about. Tell us what it's about.
Yeah, so it's called the Mind Strength Playbook. And really, it's a guide for people. We train our bodies, we train certain specific things in sport. You work on all the things inside your mind. And when I go and I ask coaches, I ask athletes, I read this in Mind Gym. It was like one of the puzzling questions of all time for me. It was like, all right, what percentage of performance do you think is mental versus physical? And then people are like 80-20, 70-30, 90-10. And then you follow up with, do you train in proportion to that then? You really work 90% of your time on the mental versus only, 10% on the physical. And that's the complete opposite. Most people are 99% to one. And so I found in my life, I've already expressed this, I didn't have great physical talent. And I didn't seem that I could get any more confident in my life. I felt like you were born with confidence or you weren't. And then that got flipped on its head when I started working with a sports psychologist. I understood that if I trained my mind like I trained my body and I was diligent with it and I trained it properly and I gave it the proper rest, nutrition, this, that, and the other, well, I could be and become and have great mind strength. And that's what helped my career soar. And then I told you I got to that point where my motivation was low, blah, 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 blah. I didn't work on my mind strength. And guess what? Right out of the NFL. So having the perspective of it, I'm like, you know what? Not only in sports, but in life in general, people right now need mind strength more than ever. We don't get it taught in school. We don't get it taught in sports. We really don't get it taught in business. Why not? Well, because there's not a lot of people out there teaching it and coaching it. Also, there's not a lot of people out there teaching it and coaching it and doing that stuff who have done it. There's a lot of people who have theory around it, who read it in a textbook, who maybe have a nice fancy PhD or whatever. And I'm not knocking any of that stuff, but I am saying that there's a certain level of credibility that you get when you have walked the walk, when you have been the man in the arena, where you have experienced what the reader will experience and is going through. And you have skills and tools to be able to help them on their path to rise to the occasion rather than unravel, you know? And so that's what this book's about. It's what I view it as is like, knowledge just gets passed down. It's not like this is just original thought. I have been blessed to be around phenomenal thought leaders, not only working with them, but also getting people's books, reading John Wooden's stuff, Bill Walsh's stuff, Wayne Dyer, The Four Agreements, Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, John Ford. I mean, there's so many people to go on and on and on. And taking what they've done and compiling it in a book that's in a sequential matter that people can have bite-sized pieces and really train their mind. And it's a very enjoyable read. There's stories in there. It's not just I'm prescriptive telling you to do this, that, and the other. Like if you're an athlete or a football fan or a sport fan in general or a high performer, you will love this book. I promise you. And I think the biggest thing that this separates from maybe other books that have been written, besides the fact that it's written by somebody who's done it and walked the walk and coached it, not only do I have the unique experience of being a player and not being a top tier player, but being a player who kind of got forged from the fire and then be able to get to the top, and then not also just stayed at the top, but then fell down and had a fall, come to grace, come to Jesus moment, and then get into college coaching. And I was able to coach it. I coached it in privately, but in the book, one of the biggest things that I think separates it from a lot of other books that have been written is two things. One, it's not one concept that I keep going back to over and over and over again. It's not like I'm telling you just to control the controllable, and that's the theme of the entire book, and that's the only thing I give you. Yes, that's the foundation of the book, you're taking ownership, all that stuff. There's underlying themes throughout the book, yeah. But each chapter It is something new, some new skills, some new tools, some new things that can help you. So each chapter is like its own book. It's like its own thing, and it's built upon the next in a sequential manner. It's like you're walking up the stairs to get to the point where, hey, you have elevated your game now. Master your mind, you'll elevate your game. And the last thing that I'll say on the differentiating part of it is knowledge power, right? You get asked this question all the time. Hey, is knowledge power? And I would think most people, whenever I go talk, they say, yeah, it's knowledge power. And I'm like, it's not. And they look stone faced, you know? And my sports psychologist gave that same trap question to me. And now I view it like this. It's like, if I know the answer C, I have the knowledge, the answer is C, yet I put B. How powerful is that? Well, it's not. The application of knowledge is power. And I think that's where the greatest coaches, the greatest leaders, the greatest people who have influence over, a group of people to help them elevate their game is, can you get them to apply what you are coaching them to do? This book, it gives you the black and white roadmap of how to do it, how to apply it. And in fact, in there, you got the QR codes or whatever. It takes you to a free virtual locker room where there's added bonus resources like a playbook, like visualizations, like a guided breath work to help you apply what I'm talking about, because it does you no good to read it, to theorize on it, to have the knowledge and not apply it when it matters most. So I'm very passionate about it. I think it's going to be the greatest book in this space. It has the potential to. I'm very passionate about it. And I think it can change anybody's life who reads it, who's open-minded, and who applies the material in it.
Yeah.
Like I
Well,
said, it's not, well, last thing, it's not just my work. It's universal truth from all these people combined in one book. That's how I
yes.
view it.
Well, I love the way you describe it. And, it's obviously great to have kind of like a tactical roadmap or a playbook for that. But to combine it with the stories as well from, it sounds like sports, greatest leaders and coaches, just makes it so much more engaging. And
Yeah. And if
congratulations
anybody,
again.
thank you. And if anybody likes Mike Leach stories, there's plenty of those in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Leach. There's Leachisms in there because, Coach Leach was very, very, I think, wise. I mean, I think the way that he operated, I mean, the fact his career, he goes to Texas Tech, right? They don't have all the bells and whistles they do now, right? They got in the NIL era, they got all that oil money now. So now they're a top-notch deal. But when he was coaching, they weren't. And he goes to Washington State. He turns around that program, goes down to Mississippi State. He just wins at where he's at. Why? Well, guess what? It's not luck. It's the guy had a formula. And the same thing can be applied when it comes to mind strength and the same principles and the same thing with leadership. And so, I look back on it now from a 30-year-old, at least I'm a little more mature than I was when I'm 22, and I wasn't as, I'm not as victim minded now. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that I had to be around such a legendary coach and really all my other coaches too. So I just think I really love the book. It's the most proud thing professionally that I've ever done, besides walking on, besides
Yeah.
walking on.
I,
And
lo- I love
yeah, it
that.
provides a lot of pride for me. So appreciate it.
Very, very cool, Luke, and very happy for you and excited to see what the book can do. Can you tell us where we can find the book and find you?
Yeah, so you can find the book anywhere that you get your book. Really, I think it's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Books a Million, and then obviously the big one that a lot of people go to, and I kick people to, is Amazon, just because it's you got all your card information there. You plug it in. That you can also go to my website at coachlukefalk.com, coachlukefalk.com. Now, on the Falk, it's not Faulk. It's actually a four-letter word that starts with an F, ends with a K. Falk. My dad likes to throw that joke in, so he'll be happy that I did. So coachlukefalk.com, and then you can get the book there as well. It'll kick you to Amazon or one of those other links. I don't have a direct me to you at that point. So and then also you can go find, if you've got any high school kids, young college kids that want to get mind strength coaching and training, I've got these great group training camps that we go through an 8-week program to create phenomenal foundational pieces with mind strength. And then, if they do a great job within that, they're eligible to be part of our huddle, which is an ongoing mind strength mentorship program, which is, a phenomenal deal. And just excited to do what I do and be able to be part of it. And thank you for having me on. And anyways, I got to go get your book. What was the name of it again?
Finding Intangibles.
Finding intangibles. Let's plug that in. All right, everyone go get Finding Intangibles.
Get Finding Intangibles, get the Mind Strength Playbook. Once again, Luke, congratulations, man, not only on writing the book, but also finding your why and pursuing it the way that you are. Obviously, your passion definitely comes through over Zoom. So thank you again for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Appreciate it.